Hi, this is part 2 of phase 2 of the bowling animation project. At the end of the last video, you inserted the bowling ball rolling sound with the pins falling sound. Now remember, once you get finished with that, you do need to go back and click on your Channels tab over here. You need to be able to see your keyframe dots again. We're going to work with the pin setter and the sweep rack now, and we'll need to make just a small adjustment to them before we start animating them. So go back to frame 0 right now. This is going to be very important. In your layers palette, find your layer for the top piece, whatever you happen to have there, and click on the little eyeballs to hide it temporarily. And it may be good for you to hide your title up there as well if you've got a big title up there. Okay. You need to have a very good view right now of your pin setter and your sweep rack, which should be up here. We need to focus on the pin setter just at the moment, so I'm actually going to hide my sweep rack as well, and then click on the pin setter layer. Now this is something that's going to make your life a whole lot easier. If your pin setter is not much higher than the edge of this, kind of recessed area here where the pins are supposed to be sitting, you'll need to move it up. I'll go over here and I'll click on Transform Layer. I'll hold my Shift key down so that when I push upwards it'll go nice and straight and it won't end up going to the left or the right. And I'm going to move it a pretty good distance because I want it to be more than the height of a pin, because it's going to pick up a pin and the pin is going to follow its path, and so we need to make sure we're going to clear this. Okay, so make sure that you get that high enough where if you imagined that it was holding on to a pin right here, the bottom of the pin is going to clear this area. Now I realize you may not have the same image that I have, but you should still have your top panel hiding the sweep rack and the pin setter, and of course your bottom would be separate. And then it will be helpful if you go ahead and move that sweep rack up, to the same general area, even though the sweeper isn't going to be picking up any pins. But even still, I'm going to activate my sweep rack layer over here in the layers palette, and be sure I have transform layer on, hold shift down, and then just move that into that same general area. So go ahead and pause the video if you need to get those set up and resume when you're ready. Okay, let's pick up some pins. Go to the timeline ruler, click and drag along. Find the area where your last pin has finally fallen. Let's see. Sometimes it's helpful if you click on the pin layer of the last fallen pin so that you can actually see its last keyframe. Okay, and I think that might have been pin 8 for me. Yeah. So my pin finally falls at frame 145. So I can give it nearly a second more. Let's say that I move on out to frame 168. And this is where my pin setter will begin its descent. And so I'm stopping here at frame 168. I'm going back over to click on my pin setter layer. The next thing, of course, is extremely important. Animation, add keyframe. We don't want that pin setter doing anything before 168. Now we'll give it 1 second, and of course I've experimented with this before, having made these tutorials in the past. Be sure transform layer is selected. Be sure you hold your shift key down and pull it. All right, so you want to be able to see a bit of the top of the pins. Now it's going to pause here for a moment, and so again, very important. Animation, add keyframe. So I've got my set of keyframes at the end of that, and at the beginning of that. Let me pull this up a little bit here. It needs to pause when it's down there. It shouldn't just go down and right back up. We'll have it pause for a second. For me, that's frame 216. It may be different for you. Again, animation, add keyframe. Let's scrub across and have a look at what happened here so far. It comes down and it pauses. Before we involve the pins in this, we can go ahead and have it go back up. We can give it that same length of time, the 1 second's worth to go back up. I've moved to frame 240. Now all I need to do to make sure it goes back exactly from where it came is to go over here. This is the reset button for position. Okay, click it and it goes right back from where it came. Now it's going to be very important before you move on, while you're still at that frame, go up to animation, add keyframe. Okay, so let's just look at this quickly. It comes down, it pauses, it goes back up. Good. But we have to have the pins here following that, which is actually pretty easy. So obviously the pins need to go back up with it. What does that mean? It means that they need to follow the keyframes from here to there. So what do? We copy the keyframes for movement, or if you look at the little icon, it's called layer translation. So only on this row right here, and only these keyframes, drag, select. Make sure you're seeing just those highlighted. Now you can copy them, edit, copy. Now once you go over to your layers palette and you click on your pins, you're not going to see these keyframes anymore for the pin setter. So remember where you need to be. You want to go to, for me, this is frame 216. Maybe a different number for you. Got to find my pins. Need to make sure I'm finding these. Obviously, the way to do that is by clicking through them. Here, let me go up here. All right, this is obviously one of them, and I can zoom in just to make sure. So pin 6, not pin 7, nope, not pin 8, 9, and pin 10. So let me just go back to pin 6. I'm at frame 216. So what I need to do, edit, paste relative. I'll be pasting the path. Now I'm going to go over to, what was it, 9 and 10? Yeah. I'm still on frame 216. I'm going to paste that same path, paste relative. And then it was pin 10. Third time, paste relative. All right, now I'm going to zoom out and see how I did. Clicking back here on the timeline a ways, I'll just push play and see if the pins go up with the pin setter. Perfect. And as you can see, the pins more than cleared the area I was worried about. I wouldn't have even had to pull up the sweep and the pin setter that high. So when I turn back on that panel, these will all be hidden back here, and it's going to look great. So why don't you get that far along? I'll pause now and continue in the next video.